Hello indie game fans, another month, another great set of indie games to play, with a surprise release or two that you might have missed. So let's begin with Slice and Dice, a roguelite dice builder in which you lead a group of heroes and fight your way through dungeons. You are literally placing icons down on the different faces of the die and then rolling it to see what comes out, and strategically targeting enemies in order to kill them. While minimalist, I do think that the pixel art looks awesome, and it's fantastic that we're getting so many great strategy roguelites. The developer also has done something that I wish other developers would do, in that their mobile versions are essentially a free demo with one in-app purchase to unlock the full game, so there's no microtransactions BS in this. The evolution of the popularity of the interactive toy has been fascinating to watch, being digital programs that you can interact with, but lacks mechanics and features that many people would consider to be essential for it to be considered a game, without points, enemies, or explicit objectives, with SUMMERHOUSE being the latest title to have really taken off. You are, as the title proposes, constructing summer houses in wondrous locations where you are free to design the houses however you see fit, with the video gamey stuff of unlocking new stuff to build with, but otherwise follows games like Townscaper in core design. It looks awesome and is just a relaxing, chill time, so if you want a little palate cleanser in between sessions of more heavy gaming, this is the perfect title for that. Speaking of action-heavy video video games, here's the 1.0 release of Spell Disc, a pixel art spell crafting action roguelite in which you are creating unique spell combos in order to destroy your enemies. As evident by the trailer, the action can get rather overwhelming with the amount of stuff going on screen, with there being an inherent satisfaction in creating seemingly overpowered attacks from the spells available to you in a manner not unlike Magicraft, so if you want more spell slinging action, check this title out. I wasn't quite sure where to place this since it does use the Moomin IP, which is fairly popular globally, but it also does come to us from a relatively small team, so I'm placing Snufkin Melody of Moominvalley here, since I suppose the audience of people who are aware of a Moomin game and the people that play video games on Steam and Switch might not really have all that large a crossover, but yet it managed to get an impressive 1000 plus Steam reviews and an overwhelmingly positive rating. It's an adventure game with music elements of attempting to stop an industrialist from creating ugly parts, so get up to mischief in order to stop him. It looks awesome, but perhaps isn't all that mechanically challenging, but it's a wholesome, whimsical, good time and is for adventure game fans. Here's an impressive turn-based tactics RPG that was released out of early access, having a very classic high fantasy CRPG kind of world and setup, but Stolen Realm manages to streamline some things and has an interesting combat system. It is still turn-based combat, so you take turns to give instructions to your heroes, but when the action resumes, your actions and those of enemies play out simultaneously, so there's a degree of anticipation and strategy as well. It strips out the walk-around exploration part of such games, pushing you from one combat mission to another with story events, shops and treasure in between those scenarios, but the core combat experience is fantastic. This even has online co-op support for up to 6 players, each controlling a hero, so maybe swap your regular D&D session with this game. Here are a couple of bigger games of note coming to us from bigger teams, with the first-person shooter defense title Outpost Infinity Siege looking gorgeous due to Unreal Engine 5, having awesome action that sees you blasting away at hordes of enemies, with the developers quickly addressing issues and patching the game, so perhaps the mixed reviews are unjustified at this point. The long-in-development remake Rivers Collapse, codenamed Bakery, finally released after many years, an anime tactics title with chibi characters, so that may or may not be your thing. Strategically, however, this is a turn-based tactics title through and through, having an AP system in which you are spending points to do actions in your turn, but is more tactical RPG since the characters that you control are unique and are not just replaceable grunt units. There are RPG elements for the characters, with each having their own skill trees and special abilities, with the missions having specific objectives which are not always kill all enemies on screen, with the mixed reviews here apparently due to review bombing. An impressive RPG title that is very Polish is the Thaumaturge, in which you essentially play as a magician, not the entertainment fun-time types that you would think of, but a powerful sorcerer instead, set against the backdrop of a morally grey world and emphasizes the role-playing portion of the RPG genre, with this having walking around, talking to people and turn-based combat, with people saying that this is Persona 5 mixed with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, so if that intrigues you, look into this game. Given the popularity of Stardew Valley, it is no wonder that developers have been making farming sims in a bid to get some of that same attention, and while there have been a number of cheap imitations, I'm happy to report that Lightyear Frontier is not one of those. This is a farming game set on an alien planet in which you have your own mech to help in tilling the soil, watering the crops, and even taking care of the local alien creatures. It looks gorgeous and also has co-op support, but do note that there have been issues with frames dropping and graphical glitches even on high-end graphics cards, so perhaps there are some technical difficulties around launch, but since it is early access, I'm sure that it will get sorted out along the way. The planet exploration part is neat, since there are secrets to uncover, but there's no combat, with the current version having about 10 to 15 hours of content, with more to be added. Here's a weird one, since 64 is one part automation title, but it's not quite one, and it's also kind of like an idle game, but it's not quite that, since you cannot fully leave it to automate itself, but if you love watching numbers go up, this will be a title of interest. You are essentially progressing up the tech tree, mining a cube of a certain color, so that you can build machines to mine cubes of another color and so on, with it all being rather abstract, but there's a wonderful minimalism to this game. You have to optimize your layout to the extent of tearing it all down and rebuilding from scratch, and might be for a very specific type of person, but if that is you, definitely get this one. Climbing Up with Pontipans, aka a difficult game about climbing, is a rage game or frustration platformer that wears its inspirations on its sleeve, of course being heavily inspired by Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy, to the extent of even having similar looking visuals and the random junk that our hero has to climb up. However, you do get a bit more control here rather than swinging the axe, which makes it ever so slightly less frustrating, but the tremendous highs of making it to the next safe area will be contrasted with the crushing defeat of falling all the way down back to the start of the game. There is, however, no narrator that waxes philosophy as you climb, so there is an element missing, but this 100% works as a rage game, and this developer and YouTuber is 2 for 2 in making excellent popular games. It is so interesting to me that we have a whole bunch of strategy roguelites that are blowing up this year, with the mega hit Balatro from February, followed by Backpack Battles in March. This is Backpack Hero meets Super Autopads, showing that mashing together two popular games is a viable strategy for indie developers, in which you are purchasing and placing down items in your inventory, in which their quantity, orientation, and position relative to other items will affect their effectiveness in combat. It takes a bit of getting used to wrap your head around the systems, but it is deeply strategic and has you facing off against builds that other players have created, so there's always something new and fun to discover. They have done it again. Somehow, the developers have made an early access release of a Metroidvania work in Ender Magnolia Bloom in the Mist, and perhaps should not be surprising since they did the exact same thing with Ender Lily's Quietus of the Night, which was the first game in the series. This is a direct sequel and is set many years after the events of the first game and has our protagonist commanding homunculi to fight on her behalf, with each new homunculi added also contributing to the Metroidvania-style abilities to access new areas. Interestingly, they are targeting a full release in 2024, and it seems to be on a similar kind of time frame as the original, but so far so good, so here's hoping they stick the landing. If you love Metroidvanias like this, watch this video for 50 upcoming titles.